Welcome to the very first episode of B2B Courtship, where we give you the specifics behind building digital relationships. Because whether we like it or not, Mindshare leads to Marketshare. Today we're talking about Susan. Susan drove past the stump that used to be the giant oak tree on the corner of her street. She had never even noticed it before, but now that it was gone, a sense of sadness washed over her. It wasn't like the oak was in her yard or that she even sat under it like others did in the neighborhood, but it felt like it belonged. Something felt off about the drive, something felt off about the corner ever since the storm had washed the oak tree away. This, my friend, is a perfect example of the mere exposure effect. The mere exposure effect is our brain's tendency to develop affection for things, sights, sounds, smells, anything, the more often they show up around us. We don't even have to consciously recognize or think about them. Our brain is quietly taking note of the repeated exposure in the background. Think about a song that you heard on the radio. Maybe the first time you hear it, you might not care, you might think it's bad, you might think it's meh. But as you hear it more and often, you start to like it. That's the mere exposure effect in action. The mere exposure effect, as we understand it today, was observed in 1968 by social psychologist Robert Zajonc. I think it was a weird experiment, but Zajonc had people read words from a foreign language out loud, change how often they read each word, and after the reading exercise, they were asked to guess the meaning of each word. Surprisingly, the words that they were repeated most often were rated more positively, while the words that were repeated less often, or not at all, were rated negatively. Just the mere exposure, pun intended, caused a more favorable response. Let's dig into the brain mechanics behind this for a minute or two. Stick with me, because this is the foundation of why the mere exposure effect is so important for marketers and brand builders. Our brains are wired to prefer familiarity. Familiarity means that our brains don't have to work as hard to recognize what's happening. And when the brain doesn't have to work hard, it's a happy brain. Basically, the brain is lazy. Essentially, when something is familiar, the brain is fluent in processing it. This ease creates a positive experience, and that positive experience creates affection. It's like the brain is saying, hey, I know this thing, I feel good about this thing, and I like this thing. And that's why we should care, because about the mere exposure effect. At its core, this behavioral psychology concept means that our audience, by simply seeing our brand repeatedly for long periods of time, develop an affinity for it. Now, we know it's not that easy in the real world. We've got competitive interference, fading memories, and divided by our attention to compete with. People are bombarded with tens of thousands of messages every single day. But if we can overcome those obstacles, there's an important lesson here. Showing up every day wins in the long run. It's less about having the perfect asset, the perfect copy, the perfect brand from day one. It's about showing up consistently, day in and day out, with those messages and those beliefs that you want your target audience to see. Now, we see this in all types of places all the time. Big brands with big budgets use the mere exposure effect to spread their logos everywhere. You'll see them from stadiums to race cars to nonprofit events. And they seem to be all over the place in the target market that they're trying to hit, because they know the power of showing up. I saw an article somewhere, and I can't confirm or deny the exact percentages, but I believe in the concept that mature organizations spend about 60% of their marketing budget on brand marketing and generally immeasurable tactics, with the other 40% on conversion-focused tactics. Now, I don't know about you. I want that same type of exposure in my target audience, but I don't have a big budget to spend. Don't have $1 million for a month, for a year, for 10 years. So here's what I'm going to do to use this concept to build my business, and hopefully you can too. A semi-easy first step is to leverage low-cost advertising on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has this medium called text ads. They're those small, short ads that show up in the top right of your screen on desktop, but they don't appear on the mobile app. And that's a powerful thing, because most of the time when somebody is on LinkedIn on their desktop during work hours, they're in a professional mindset, or they have that professional mindset running in the background. Because I don't know many people that mindlessly scroll in LinkedIn for entertainment. No shade if you do, but I just don't know about it. The second powerful thing that LinkedIn text ads have going for them is that you only pay for clicks when you use the website visitors optimization target. And almost no one clicks on these text ads. I currently have a text ad campaign running with about 100,000 impressions and only 4 clicks that cost me about $70 total. This might seem like poor performance on the surface, but here's the thing. The number of searches for my company on LinkedIn has steadily increased. Now, when properly set up, The LinkedIn pixel can show you view through conversions. And that's the second power of impressions versus actual clicks. That means that somebody is seeing my ads and then they took a trackable action on the website within a certain period of time. So it all leads to my only goal with text ads is that for my target audience to constantly and consistently see my logo and my company name, allowing their brain to register the repetition. So we're going to add a little bit of power to this tactic by adding in the power of association, positive association, not just any type of association. Text ads have a 25 character headline limit and a 75 character description limit. So remember that the mere exposure effect works without us consciously thinking about what we're seeing. So what I'm going to do is test 30 different phrases as the different text ads, such as Mindshare leads to Marketshare, free Mindshare building newsletter, build your brand, things like that. Read why people buy. And all of these are intended to open up a subconscious curiosity gap that the audience is itching to close. They see these phrases repeatedly and they start to associate my brand with these concepts. Now, an intermediate level one, we're going to talk about boosting organic social media posts. So this tactic for me is I'm looking to boost my organic post across social media to target audiences and on all my other channels besides LinkedIn. I focus on authority and credibility building content with no direct sales pitch. Now, the only call to action I use is to subscribe to my newsletter or subscribe to my podcast, basically join the community. This allows me to expand my reach and get my brand in front of people who might not see it otherwise. And by consistently providing valuable content, actually helpful, actionable, not just value, because value is sort of a fluff word nowadays, I can further reinforce the positive associations with my brand. And all that leads to the hardest version of this tactic, talking about being everywhere all at once. Each week, I plan on creating a podcast, just like this one, on a behavioral science topic. That podcast script becomes a blog post, a newsletter, 10 to 20 video clips, 1 to 5 carousels, 1 to 5 static images, 1 to 5 new LinkedIn text ads. Maybe not that many video clips, but you get the point. The podcast gets posted on my YouTube channel, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. The newsletter gets sent to my list. The blog article gets posted on my blog, which gets about 500 clicks a month and counting right now. Woohoo! I started at 0 at the beginning of this year. The video clips get posted on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok, because why not? I'm already making videos. The carousels, static images, and clips get posted on my personal LinkedIn page. The goal, like I said, be everywhere all at once. Now, I want to do this almost every week for the rest of the time I own this business. And slowly but surely, I'll build an audience, and the people will look forward to my content and develop an affection for what I have going on. This won't be crappy content either. I want this to genuinely help people connect with their potential audiences and build digital relationships. Like I said, the specifics behind building digital relationships. So whenever I create something that helps somebody, I reinforce the positive association between my brand and the problem I'm trying to help solve. Building a digital relationship with their audience online in 2024, 2025, and beyond. So here are your action items. If you're in B2B, then I almost guarantee that your audience is on LinkedIn. Go and create a text ad campaign and launch it with about 10 different ads with strong headlines and descriptions. Full disclosure now, people do click on these ads, just not very often. So be prepared to pay around $25 to $50 a month for this. Second, figure out how you can show up on social where your audience plays. I choose to prioritize platforms where people who don't follow me can see my content. For example, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, Instagram Reels, TikTok, because like I said, why not? I'm already creating videos. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of content or a lot of effort. It just needs to be consistent. If you can post something helpful once a week, then you're well on your way. If you can't post something helpful, then try commenting on other people's posts with something helpful or actionable and valuable. Get people used to seeing your face and your brand. All right, that's all, folks. If you found this helpful, be sure to subscribe to B2B Courtship on the newsletter, on the website, on the blog or YouTube, podcast, wherever you want. It really helps me to let me know that I'm doing the right thing, letting you know, give you guys helpful tips and actionable items. So remember, Mindshare leads to Marketshare. Until next time, I'm your host, Doug Dotz, and this has been B2B Courtship.